We're in New Mexico. It's the 1st of September and the rut hasn't fully kicked in. We were hunting near the unit boundary, which always makes things a little tricky. We're going to slow play a lot of these elk with strategic calling and only pursue elk when we are certain the situation is in our favor.
He's on the top of that. See a little white butt up there. That's him.
This will be a masterclass on elk hunting. I'll be going over all types of bugling, responding to elk calls, navigating the terrain, aggressive versus non-aggressive bulls, and much more. This will be a chance for you to see my process, and I hope you will take something away from it.
So with the bull bugle in there, we should expect it to come down this canyon, down that face.
I'm excited to be joined by Cal on this hunt. He's the kind of guy who just always knows the right things to add to the conversation. Besides that, he's just a cool guy.
I thought you were all about bugling. You're saying because of the low light, early start, the cow calling is
just early September, like really early. We'll just kind of get up here, cow call, see if they respond well to it, and if not, we'll roll right into the bugle game.
With the woods being relatively quiet, I'm choosing not to bugle just yet. Because cow calls can be very effective this time of year without the risk of pushing elk away from being too aggressive. So for now, cow calls are the way to go.
So we've spent most of the morning trying to stay out of the view of the elk. We're now close enough. Within about 400 yards as the crow flies, we're now going to take a direct approach and try to get in his zone now.
My first bugle is a location bugle. It's a 2 to 3 note high-pitched bugle just meant to get a response from another bull.
I believe that one.
With that first bugle, the bull responded directly to my calling. The wind direction's right, he's not too far away, so we're going to use the terrain and vegetation to our advantage and cut the distance.
That's that bigger bull.
I see him move his ass at the end.
That was the type of bugle that's like, please don't come over here. He's keeping it casual though. What's your experience tell you? I'd typically just start shaving off some yardage. And
So we were doing our play coming up over that last knob. Got here, we can glass across the canyon, and there's 2 bulls over there with maybe 6 to 8 cows. So we are going to shave the distance a little bit, kind of keep listening, see what develops over there. But
With just 2 bugles, we have pinpointed a couple bulls and their cows. Now that we have a better understanding of where they are, we can continue our approach and cut additional distance. Once we feel we are in the correct location to set up, we will switch to a more personal and aggressive conversation with that bull. We will use progressively more threatening bugles and mimicry to try and accomplish that. As we continue to approach, I get a sense the conversation is escalating.
maybe some of that thicker stuff along that drainage.
The bulls are continuously bugling without us ever having to make another noise. The bulls don't like the idea of this new bull being in their area and they aren't able to keep tabs on him. The tactic of bugling our way into his area is working. He's becoming more frustrated and temperamental as time goes on. He doesn't appreciate this new bull in his area announcing his presence. As we continue to call over the top of him and get more aggressive, we can tell this bull is heading in our direction. We've moved as close as the terrain and vegetation would allow. This is where we're going to set up. I decide to move back a little bit where I'm going to call and rake and try to bring this bull into Cal's position.
where he stopped. Really hard quartering away a shot at about 18, we'll say.
We used 3 different types of bugles on this call-in. We started with a location bugle. It's a 2 to 3 note high-pitched bugle meant to force that other bull into giving up his location. Once we moved into their zone, we switched to challenge bugles. These were more aggressive bugles with added rasp and range. This lets the other bull know you're there to potentially challenge for his cows and to elicit that fight or flight reaction. You can also see at the end of the call-in I added in some chuckles for added realism. Once the other bull chuckled at us, I decided to add them into my calling and to send the same message back that he is sending to us.
Can't ask for anything more than that. Don't know why I passed that up.
Day one. There'll be many more.
I like that confidence.
We know we have elk up on this ridge behind us. They were there yesterday. We're gonna cruise that edge, check on those bulls, see if they're ready to play this morning, and kind of check that area off. Go bugle for some elk.
Being down in the timber is sometimes a difficult starting spot. We need to hear a bugle in order to formulate our plan.
First bugle of the morning, we got kind of a weak response. So in order to make a play on these, we're gonna have to go with the wind.
The wind should always be in your face as you approach elk, but in certain instances, you may have to approach with the wind less than ideal. This is based on what we anticipate the wind to be doing where the elk are at. With this bull giving us lazy, half-hearted responses to our bugles, we decide to move in a little closer and switch to cow calling to see if that changes his response. This is a lower threat level to him, and it just may be what he's searching for. We decide to keep that one in our back pocket.
Relatively slow day. There's bulls here. They're just, way less talkative than the nice cool day that we started with. We just haven't had the right situation to get aggressive on anything.
He's up top. Straight across from us.
After a pretty slow day, we start to make our play on the bull that we left this morning.
These bulls finally got out of their bed and they're hauling for water. Now it feels like we're parallel, but our unit boundary's right 75 yards away. That bull may have come up higher on the ridge. Sounds a little closer.
You see him up through there?
Yeah, 5-point right.
Big 5-pointer.
Yeah. Officially past legal shooting line.
It's encouraging though. You gonna run up here? How fast he's moving?
He's moving fast, yes.
They're in their pattern still. They're feeding in the morning, going right back to bed. Not getting pushed a lot in the middle of the day. So the plan right now is to go kind of where we stopped last night before we turned around.
The woods were alive by the time we left, so I think there's still plenty that we haven't seen.
We decide to make an approach on the 6-point bull we saw earlier. The wind seems to be in our favor and we're just not quite getting the bugle responses we feel we should be. Hopefully the 6 points vocal once we get into his zone. We now have a good lay of the land. It's important to know your terrain and understand how to navigate it. We have a bull down below us this morning, and I'm going to use what I know about this area to make an approach.
That's insulting.
It's pretty typical. Bugling subsides as the day goes on, and we cannot get him to talk. But we can make decisions based on what we know about the terrain and where we expect him to be. We've been in this area before, and we can hypothesize what move this bull will make next.
So he's feeding by himself up a drainage, and he's about to the point where he need to make a decision to go up or bed down. Wind's super consistent uphill, so we got a pretty quiet approach. We'll set up like we normally have been, and then if I have a great shot, 40 in, and just take it when it's available.
Knowing how thick the oak brush is and the slope of the hill helps us make our decision as to how and where we're going to approach this bull. We elect to use cow calls in this situation as this bull is alone and we are hoping he's just looking for cows.
So we made a move on this bull that we spotted. He hasn't spoke back or shown himself yet.
I didn't realize that when we came over the timber, we were going to be like right on top of him.
It's just bizarre how fast you can cover ground in this country.
There's always unknown obstacles that pop up in every situation, and we need to take this as new data. And then we always need to be asking ourselves how that new data changes the plan that we have in place.
It's a little bit of a stud looking at him from the back, isn't he?
Our plan to navigate the terrain and the brush worked very well. We got to a point where we could observe this bull without him knowing. The only problem was he wasn't interested in our cow calls. When it's this early and the rut really isn't kicked in, this is another obstacle you have to deal with.
You can't say that we didn't get close.
I find one a little more fired up than him.
Yeah, God, that's wild.
It's a bummer we didn't get a shot at this bull, but the silver lining for the encounter was our ability to end up in this bull's exact location, undetected, without him ever making a peep. We used onX to decide where we thought he would be. We then used a system of game trails to keep quiet, and we used the terrain, the steep finger ridges, to keep us concealed as we approached.
Either they're not here yet, or they're not here at all today.
Right.
So that's what we gotta go try to either find them before they get here, or maybe they moved off the ridge a little bit.
They were so talkative yesterday morning.
You won't know a bull is aggressive or not until you get a response back from a bugle, and you get to interact with him a little bit. Until then, you're only trying to get a response.
Started off as not really even a back and forth. But this bull cut Jason off on the last bugle. That's a pretty quick response right there. Conversation's escalating. It's getting heated.
For an aggressive bull who cuts me off, I want to become even more aggressive. I will talk over him, I will mimic him, and we will start to close the distance as the terrain and vegetation allows.
So Jason just kind of up the game by saying I'm more of a dominant bull because I'm hitting a bigger tree.
So we tracked these two bulls kind of down to as close as we could get. Had a little battle with them, just trying to create some excitement. The one bull stayed high, but the one bull that was lower seemed like it was going to come in.
That first time he cut you off,
Yeah.
I think he definitely bugled back to the raking too.
Yep.
So those are all like very positive signs in my book.
This is why I have a love-hate relationship while hunting unit boundaries. While we did get a good response from this bull, he wanted to bet across that line, and there's nothing we can do about it. We're going to have to remember this pattern and apply it later on in the hunt.
All right, so we're gonna drop back down where we had the 2 bulls last night.
It's early in the season, and bulls just aren't showing that much aggression. This is limiting the effectiveness of our bugles, so we're going to have to adapt and switch to cow calls and see if we can find bulls that are looking for love.
Okay, so we've got a couple different bulls bugling up here. We're gonna split up. Just see what happens.
Yeah, some will have them. They're here. So Jason's downstream here. There's a big stock pond. Animals are cautious coming into water. They get ambushed all the time at water. So just don't give them anything extra to think about. That little bull's coming. They like snuck in, couldn't hear them on top of the ridge, and then they just were like, okay, we're coming down.
Glad you got some action.
Gotta have an elk encounter a day going on. 3 days left, 3 whole hunt days left.
You know, we just haven't found the party yet, and so splitting up, going different directions, you know, getting off that unit boundary, I think, is gonna, you know, both of us are staying away from that line today. Plenty of bulls in here, just not cooperating. Finally got around the boundary that we needed to. Just on this side, let off a little cow call, and we've got a bull bugling down in the bottom. A bull like this where it answers a cow call so quick. He may be coming this way already, so we're just gonna try to like strategically move with brush in our way, be doing a lot of looking as we approach. We've got a lot of time, it just got daylight. Just be prepared at all times.
I'm concentrating on like these big oak brush areas, steeper faces, like good bedding zones. I should be able to like sneak in, rake, very light cow calling. And just play like a waiting game, get somebody interested and come and walk in.
Splitting up is a tactic often used when we aren't getting into elk. It allows us to cover more ground quicker and gives us more options. With time winding down in this hunt, we decided this would up our odds.
Holy smokes.
Things have just been brutally quiet. Yeah, I can understand not talking to me, but these bulls have not been talking to each other. And, you know, somebody's got to tell them that it's their only time of the year to mate. So they better get on it.
I'm feeling pretty good about a bull we've been working on. With using nothing but cow calls, the bull is returning an aggressive response. He does have cows though, so we're going to have to continue cutting the distance. And once I move in real tight, I'm going to use an aggressive bugle in hopes that will pull him off his cows.
I let out a bugle and another one, cow calls, and he just went silent. I don't know what happened, just kind of vanished. No luck, huh?
Well, how'd you find luck? There's nothing dead, no arrows.
I noticed this morning, it took a little while to get them all in the game. Like that one answered down low, and then it was probably 45 minutes to an hour before we can get kind of them answering us and talking back and forth to each other, and just really weren't into it. I think when you pencil out your plan of attack, you always end up in the oak brush.
Yeah.
And you're against the unit boundary.
Yeah.
You have these things working against you.
We have 2 days left and still haven't released an arrow. This is not uncommon, and the first part of this lesson is to not let it frustrate you.
We've relocated again. Heard a lot of bugling while we were sleeping.
Yeah.
A little more activity in this area than anywhere else so far.
I've been on many elk hunts where we've been in the same situation and things can turn very quickly. It's been a rough go so far, but the one thing I like to remind myself when faced with situations like this is that it only takes one bull to cooperate.
Bunch of elk, cows, calves, at least 2 bull, about 200 yards away. So Jason's basically covering the high part of the pass with the longer shooting lane. This is as good a scenario as we've had, so.
There's a bull side-hilling in our direction. He's with a few cows, so it will be hard to pull him away from them. So we try an aggressive tactic with some cow calls followed by a bugle.
He's on the very top of that. You can see a little white butt up there, and that's him. I mean, we're in the elk. Very protective of his cows. Really should have gotten more of an aggressive response, but he's high on the hill. He can see everything. I think that's what our holdup is. If we can sneak up and get in the dark timber where they're headed, then we should have a better chance.
We travel slow and methodical in the bull's direction. As we approach, he becomes extremely vocal. In order to escalate the conversation, we use aggressive bugling. And because he's guarding his cows and needs to be challenged, we need to get close and maintain that aggression.
Did you see him pick his nose up? Because the wind just shifted right there. We always think about human pressure, but he's so deep in his own social dynamic that, I'm sure he was just like, how do I take care of this without losing most of it? Right?
Yeah, big herd for this area.
Yeah.
Big herd. It's just that time of night between 4:30 and 5 when that wind just wants to switch and do some crazy stuff. So.
A big part of why bulls will stop bugling back and seem to vanish is because of the wind. We can have the perfect wind, and if it swirls for just 1 second at the wrong time, they are gone.
Last day. Road is right there.
Everything's in play.
It just has to be. Broadside elk is what I'm hunting.
All right.
Which is the way it grew up.
Perfect. I like it.
The wind is tricky, and it's something you always need to be aware of. When you're hiking, whether you're approaching the elk zone, whether you're switching slopes, dropping into a creek, crossing over a ridge, you always need to be thinking of where the wind is carrying your scent.
We're up on the ridge, spotted 3 different herds.
So start the clock. Kind of higher wind day and should be hopefully pretty darn consistent at least. It's hard to pin down. The elk behavior is just hard to pin down. But we had a bull over here that's bugling a couple of times and then has been quiet.
We gotta get up to that pass and try to get on their contour slightly above them before we make any approach and get out of this bottom real quick. Throw some cow calls out there and see if they stick. If not, we might have to progress or just go into sneak mode.
We're on the trail of what might be the last good opportunity of the trip. We're using all of our knowledge of the zone and getting good responses from a bull up the hillside. The wind is ideal for now.
I mean, as we've been seeing, there's just cows and calves everywhere. I mean, it's possible we can go down and up.
Straight up the side, one of the sides.
Yeah. And I mean, you'd be right on top of them.
That's all we got.
Yeah, best game we have, so. I'll let you cross the creek and you can close the gap.
Okay.
Good luck.
We have a bull on the opposite hillside sounding off, but he's not showing himself. So I chose a route across the creek to try to sneak up to his level before the wind switches. If I can get in position, we should have a good chance at getting a shot.
We got into about 90 yards of that bull, 80, 90, and everything was going good, calling it in. A couple seconds before we moved up that last time, felt the wind hit my neck, and at the same time kind of saw him turn and go away, so. It was a good week.
It was incredible. It really was. It was just oddly tough. We both had a couple of 100% situations and they didn't materialize, so.
Well, that's just the way it goes sometimes. You can have all the factors line up perfectly, but the smallest thing that changes, your bull loses interest, or a change in the wind disrupts your shot. That's early season. These bulls just aren't quite ready to play the game yet. As Cal and I meet back up, it's only fitting that we see the largest elk herd of the trip on the hillside.